The night was cold and quiet, the kind of silence that made every creak of the windmill sound louder than it should. Inside his small wooden cabin, Jack Turner, the biggest rancher in all of Silver Creek, was sitting by the fire, sipping his coffee. He had spent the whole day fixing fences and feeding cattle, so all he wanted now was some peace. But peace had never stayed long around Jack. A sudden knock broke through the silence. 3 soft, desperate taps. Jack frowned. No one came knocking at this hour unless something was wrong. He got up slowly, his heavy boots thudding on the floorboards. When he opened the door, the cold wind rushed in, and behind it stood a little girl. She couldn't have been more than 7. Her face was streaked with dirt, her eyes wide with fear, and her dress torn in places. Her tiny hands were trembling as she clutched the edge of her shawl. "Please," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. They beaten my mama. She's dying." Jack froze. For a second, he thought he hadn't heard her right. "What did you just say, sweetheart?" Tears welled in her eyes as she repeated, "They hurt my mama, bad. She can't get up. Please help." Without another word, Jack grabbed his coat, his lantern, and followed her into the night. The girl led him down a narrow dirt path that wound through the hills, past the old Miller barn, and into a small grove of trees. That's when he saw the cabin, a crooked little shack half hidden by weeds. The door was half open, swinging in the wind. Jack could smell the faint scent of blood even before he stepped inside. On the floor, near the dying fire, lay a woman. Her face was bruised, one eye swollen shut. Her breathing was shallow, and her hands were trembling weakly. The girl ran to her, kneeling beside her mother. "Mama, I brought help," she whispered. Jack knelt beside them, gently checking her pulse. "She's alive," he muttered, "but she's in bad shape." He picked her up like she weighed nothing and carried her all the way back to his ranch. The girl followed close, her small legs struggling to keep up. Once inside, Jack laid the woman on his bed and called for Martha, the ranch cook and the only woman in a 50-mile radius who knew a thing or two about patching people up. Martha gasped when she saw the woman's condition but went right to work, cleaning the wounds and mixing her herbs. The little girl sat at the bedside, holding her mother's hand. She hadn't said much since they arrived, but every so often she'd look up at Jack with eyes full of questions. Jack knelt down beside her. "What's your name, kiddo?" "Lily," she said softly. "And your mama?" "Mary. We came here a few weeks ago. Mama got work washing clothes for Mr. Cooper." Jack's jaw tightened. He knew Cooper. A rich, mean-tempered man who treated his workers worse than his horses. "Did he do this to her?" Jack asked gently. Lily's eyes filled with tears again. "He got mad when Mama said she wanted to leave. Said nobody walks away from him. Then he hit her. His men too." Jack's blood boiled. He clenched his fists, the veins in his arms standing out like ropes. But he took a deep breath, not wanting to scare the girl. "You're safe here now," he said. "No one's gonna hurt you or your mama again." Hours passed before Mary opened her eyes. She was weak but alive. When she saw Lily asleep beside her, a faint smile touched her bruised lips. "Thank you," she whispered. Jack sat by her side. "Don't thank me. Just rest." She tried to speak again, but her voice cracked. "He'll come looking for us, you don't know what he's capable of." Jack's eyes hardened. Let him come. For the next 2 days, Mary healed slowly. Lily followed Jack around the ranch, asking innocent questions about horses, chickens, and the big windmill that made the funny squeaking noise. Jack wasn't used to kids, but Lily's presence softened something inside him he hadn't felt in years. He showed her how to feed the horses, how to collect eggs, and even let her sit on his old saddle. Every time she smiled, it reminded him of something he'd long buried, the daughter he lost years ago to fever. But the peace didn't last. On the 3rd evening, a cloud of dust rose from the road leading to the ranch. Jack saw it from the barn and knew trouble was coming. A group of men on horseback, 6 of them, riding fast. Cooper's men. Jack stepped out, rifle in hand, as the riders pulled up near the fence. Cooper himself sat tall in the saddle, his fancy coat and smug face glowing in the sunlight. Well, Cooper sneered. "Looks like you found my runaway laundress." "She's not yours," Jack said flatly. Cooper's smile faded. "You're hiding her on my property, Turner. That's a crime." Jack's voice dropped low. "You hurt a woman and left her for dead. That's the crime." The air grew tense. One of Cooper's men spat on the ground. "You gonna hand her over, rancher? Or do we take her?" Jack's fingers tightened on his rifle. "You cross that fence, you won't make it 10 steps. For a long second, nobody moved. The wind carried the faint sound of the horses snorting. Then Cooper laughed, cold and cruel. You think you can take all of us? Jack didn't blink. Try me. Something in his eyes must have told them he wasn't bluffing, because the men hesitated. Cooper glared at him, furious but not foolish enough to start a gunfight he might lose. This ain't over, Cooper spat. You'll regret this, Turner. They rode off, leaving a trail of dust behind. That night, Jack sat on the porch, staring at the stars. Mary came out slowly, still weak but standing. You shouldn't have risked yourself for us, she said quietly. Jack shook his head. You didn't deserve what happened. No one does. She looked down. I don't know how to thank you. Just get better. That's thanks enough. Weeks passed, and life settled into a new rhythm. Mary helped Martha with chores, and Lily filled the house with laughter. The ranch, once silent and lonely, now felt alive again. But Cooper wasn't the kind of man to let things go. One evening, while Jack was fixing the gate, a gunshot echoed from the hills. A bullet whizzed past his head, splintering the post beside him. He ducked and rolled behind a trough. The sound of hoofs thundered closer. Cooper's men again, this time with guns drawn. Jack grabbed his rifle and fired back, hitting one of their horses and sending the rider tumbling. Martha rushed out with Lily, shouting for Jack. They're coming from the back too. Jack cursed under his breath. He couldn't let them reach the cabin. He aimed carefully, firing again and again until the attackers retreated into the dark. By the time the smoke cleared, Cooper was gone, but not before Jack saw his face in the distance, twisted with rage. That night, Mary sat by the fire with Lily asleep in her arms. You can't fight him forever, she said softly. Jack looked at her for a long moment. Then I'll make sure he can't hurt anyone else. The next morning, Jack rode into town and went straight to Sheriff Mason, an old friend. He told him everything, how Cooper and his men attacked Mary, how they came after him again. The sheriff listened, jaw tight. You got witnesses. Mary. And the girl. That's enough for me, Mason said, slamming his hand on the desk. We'll ride out tonight. By sunset, the sheriff and his deputies surrounded Cooper's ranch. When Cooper came out, still smirking, Mason showed him the warrant. You're under arrest for assault and attempted murder, the sheriff said. Cooper's smile vanished. He tried to run, but Jack was there, blocking his path. Game's over, Jack said. Cooper was dragged off in cuffs, cursing all the way. When Jack returned home that night, Lily ran to him and hugged his leg. You did it, she said. Jack smiled and picked her up. No, kiddo, we did. Mary's eyes filled with tears. For the first time in years, she felt safe. I don't know how we can ever repay you. Jack looked at them both and said quietly, just stay. And they did. Over time, the ranch became more than just a place to live, it became a home again. Mary helped run the household, Lily went to school, and Jack, well, he found something he thought he'd lost forever, family. Every now and then, on quiet evenings, Lily would run up to Jack and say, remember that night I knocked on your door? He'd smile and ruffle her hair. How could I forget, little one? That was the night my life changed. And from that day on, Silver Creek knew Jack Turner not just as the giant rancher, but as the man who opened his door when a little girl knocked and saved them both.